gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's March the 7th, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by Matt Shodell, our managing editor, and Izubee Charles, as we discuss the news of the day. And spring practice number 3 is in the books. Guys, let's start there. We all were out, obviously, at the practice facility yesterday. Mario's letting us actually watch a little bit more practice this year. Thank you, Mario. Shout out to Mario for that. And it's really valuable, quite honestly, because it gives us a chance to eyeball more specific players and really get a feel for how well they are doing out there. And guys, I walked out yesterday with a couple impressions. Cam Ward is absolutely as good as advertised. We've now seen him a few practices, and he's consistent. He's a leader. He's an old school Cane. He's out there talking smack to the corners. He's bouncing around the practice field, just trying to establish himself as like, this is my team, and I came here to make this my team and make this team better, and we're going to do it. And I think they can do it, but I think there's some clear barriers that they still have to knock down. We're watching practice. Izubee, I'll start with you. And, we're standing there. We're watching JoJo Trader, just a true freshman who should still be in high school. And what's the matter, man? You look like you're hungover this morning or something.
Yeah, I just had a quick sneeze. These allergies.
A little bit too much partying last night or something?
None of that.
No, but it's in all seriousness. So, we're watching JoJo Trader, who really should still be in high school. Okay, he should be thinking, who am I going to take to the prom in a few weeks? And I mean, he's out there. At times, it looks like a man against boys out there. I mean, it's like he's so smooth in his get-offs at the line of scrimmage and his routes. And I'm not going to go crazy here. A lot depends on the individual matchups. And I'm not sitting here today after 2 spring practices looking to throw too many guys under the bus, right now. But JoJo Trader should probably not look as good as he's looking. So, and we're watching Xavier Restrepo, out maneuvering a defensive back that played for, in the college football playoff last year, and in Powell from the transfer from Washington. I mean, Xavier Restrepo looks great out there, and several of the other receivers, I thought Robbie Washington and Ray Joseph looked much improved. And if the receivers, Izubee, are looking this much more improved and this much better, I also think it's telling us that defensive back might be a bigger question mark than what we might have hoped. You look out there, and obviously Damari Brown is out for right now, and that hurts their depth a little bit. Porter, you're hoping, can have a good season at corner. Jadaeus Richards looks to me like he has a chance to be a very good corner this next season. Just not a lot of depth out there, Izubee. And when you're talking about a practice where it's rep after rep after rep, rapid fire succession, it's given the wide receivers with a potentially elite quarterback in Cam Ward, and Reese Poppenberger looking very, very good as well, and Emory Williams looking great as well. You got some gunslingers at quarterback now, and they're kind of exposing to me the depth at defensive back to the point where I will predict right now that they will go into the portal in April looking for at least 1, if not 2, rotation pieces.
Yeah, I remember yesterday I spoke with you and I was like, hey, Gary, it's either these wide receivers are really, really good or these DBs are not looking too hot right now. But, in all seriousness, we did, like you mentioned, these DBs are having to take a lot of reps because there was only, I believe, 5 DBs compared to about 10 wide receivers. So these guys are, for every 2 receivers, there's 1 DB. But kind of going back to JoJo Trader, I feel like the best way to describe him so far is just a smooth operator. He gets off the line, he gets separation, and he's sure-handed. He's making these big catches. First kind of fade route he had was against Daryl Porter, and he kind of smoked him. And he saw Daryl Porter reaching and trying to pull for his jersey. I'm like, is this the same Daryl Porter that we saw last year? Is what's going on? Like you mentioned, JoJo should be, getting ready for his senior prom, but he's out here, doing this against third-year DBs, and then he does it again against Dimitri Freeney, gets even more space. And, you mentioned those battles with Michelle Powell and Xavier Streppel, who had, one of the best catches I've seen in a while. It was great battles, from these guys going one-on-ones, and it was great for us to see those. But, that DB room is kind of concerning a little bit. I know Damari Brown is out right now, but it's looking like there's 5 guys, heading into the spring right now. It's kind of questionable. Like I said, Daryl Porter, is getting beaten by a freshman. Not saying it's the end of the world, but, you don't want to really see that against a guy that's going to be your number 1 guy come back next year. Like you mentioned, Jadis Richard looked pretty good too. I feel like the first spring practice, he looked better. Yesterday was, a little bit 50-50, but, I'm not 100% worried or not, concerned out of my mind right now about the DBs, but I do think that's going to be a group that, has to build upon itself kind of head into the spring.
All right. So, Matt and I didn't make it through 5 minutes of practice yesterday without arguing with each other. What a surprise. We just don't seem to agree on very much, but we're watching Michelle Powell, okay, the transfer from Washington. Okay, now I look at Izubee, looks at him, and I'm looking at him, and like we're thinking this kid looks pretty good physically. He's got a chance. Okay, Matt Shodell, the curmudgeon, is sitting on the sideline, ranting and raving that he thinks Michelle's too small. Okay, where this came from, I don't know. Maybe he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe his wife kicked him to the floor before. I don't know what happened, but Matt was grumpy 5 minutes into practice and was poking holes at Michelle Powell, the new safety who transferred from Washington. Okay, now this is a guy who spent 5 seasons at Washington. He started 26 of the 36 games that he appeared in. Okay. He had an interception last year with the Huskies trailing 7-6. Arizona State was moving in for a clinching score. He stepped in front of a pass and went 89 yards with it for a touchdown to give Washington the victory and keep their playoff hopes alive. And, you saw where that went. Okay. What else? I mean, he's had a pretty solid college football career at Washington and decided to go into the portal for his last year, and he picked Miami over Florida. Okay. Just an incredible story too. I mean, he came out of nowhere. He was a non-scholarship athlete initially, was walked on to Washington, and he worked his way into a starting role as a cornerback, safety, and nickelback for a team that was one of the best in college football last year. Okay. So Matt's out of practice, and he's poking holes in Michelle Powell. And he did get beat by Restrepo on one occasion, no argument. But he did look like he has potential. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to Matt. I'm going to let him give us his impressions of what's going on in practice with an asterisk. He's grumpy. He's angry. He's seeing things out of focus. Okay. And you got to just take all that into consideration as you hear his opinions this morning. So Matt, go ahead.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great morning. Because as usual, Gary likes to stir the pot. The kid's he's a great player. I mean, you
were ranting and raving. Izubee and I were gushing.
I was quiet the whole time you talked. Why can't I talk for 1 minute without you
just qualifying? You were ranting and raving. Izubee and I were gushing.
He's a great player. He's had a couple of rough practices. No big deal. Gary and Izubee said, wow, look at how big he is. And my point was, he's a safety who doesn't have height and length. What he has is extremely large arms and extremely large legs. He's very powerful. To me, he looks like he'd be a great nickel in Lance Guidry's system, and I'm not sure he won't wind up there depending how safety shakes out. That might be his best spot on this team.
Could be.
And they put him in one-on-one coverage with Xavier yesterday. And he gave up 3 catches in a row to Xavier, okay? But I was actually very impressed. We had this conversation before because it was based on the first practice, he was not good, okay? Monday, he was not good. Yesterday, he was much better. And he really stuck with Xavier better than the corners do, I think he's a very good cover safety. Now, is he going to be a long, rangy safety? No, he's not. Is he, he's got good hips. Is he the fastest straight ahead guy? No, from what I can see. Is he good enough? Absolutely. Is he an upgrade on Cam Kinchens and James Williams? I'm not sure. I don't think so right now, based on what I saw. And Cam Kinchens is maybe right now a 4th rounder, and James Williams, people now say, might slip to the 6th or 7th round. After they had really not great combines. Powell also has that intangible, right? That's the thing I always talk about. Like, you can say, oh, Matt bashed him and said he's not a tall, rangy corner or whatever. Like, he's not big enough to be that kind of corner Miami needs.
Izubee's my witness on this one. Sorry, Matt.
But he has that intangible because, like Gary said, he's a former walk-on. I'll take those kids all day because they will battle every single rep. He could have a bad play, and unlike half the players we've seen at Miami, or more than half over the last 20 years, he'll come back and try even harder instead of going in the tank. And that's the kind of guys that Miami needs. They need that kind of leadership, that kind of backstory of this is a guy who came from nowhere, who nobody wanted, and played in the national championship game, and now he's a Miami Hurricane. So just because Matt Shodell says he's not that tall and that long, which he's not, no matter what Gary wants to convince you of, okay, he's probably 5'11", even though he's listed at 6'1". It's 5'11". That's not that big a deal. Is he going to be the greatest safety in the world? No. But I think he could be a really, really good nickel, striker with star, whatever you want to call that position, because he's like a Jaden Davis on steroids, if you can still say steroids. He's not on steroids, okay, people? But he's like a Jaden Davis. He's like a bigger version of Jaden Davis. That's what he looks like. Jaden Davis was tiny. This is a bigger version of Jaden Davis, and I think he's just as capable of that blitz cover, role. I think that's really where this kid belongs. Whether or not they're going to have the personnel to be able to move him there instead of using him at safety, I don't know. But that's where he belongs. And guess what? That's where Washington used him until injury forced them to move him to safety.
Restrepo. Wow, man. We were sitting there talking all last season. Tyler's feeding Restrepo balls left and right. Nobody else is getting looks. Everything's going to Restrepo. He looks unbelievable. I mean, when Tyler Van Dyke, I'll just say the truth, had to leave. I mean, he had to leave. I mean, he could not come back this year. It was too toxic. He really needed it. The portal was made for Tyler Van Dyke at this stage of his career. He had to go someplace else. Restrepo was his best friend. They were roommates. They worked out together, threw balls together. I mean, they were attached at the hip for several years. And it had to sting a little bit for Restrepo to see Tyler Van Dyke have to leave. But to Restrepo's credit, he stayed. And, he is going to be an invaluable piece, obviously, in this offense. And seems to be thriving with Cam Ward. Cam Ward and he were connecting. Phenomenal ball placement by Cam Ward, by the way. I mean, these are passes 40 yards down the field that were landing in a perfect place for Restrepo to make the plays. The DB, Michelle, for one, had good coverage, and the ball just was placed perfectly. I mean, and Restrepo was coming down with them and out battling the DBs for the ball. He clearly is not missing a beat. Is certainly at least as good, if not better, than he was a year ago. And I asked him about it. We had a chance to talk to him, and I asked him about it. I'm like, what was that? How do you feel about all that? This was your best friend that had to leave. And Restrepo responded, well, he wasn't my girl. It wasn't like he was my girlfriend. I mean,
which by the way, all it makes it seem like is that he was his girlfriend. I mean, who says that? That's all that makes you think was it his girlfriend? What's he talking about? Why is he mentioning girlfriends? That was super weird.
And of course, all the writers there started typing on their phones. They wanted to put it out on Twitter and all that. But I mean, it was a very, very interesting way of putting it by Xavier. But he looks great. I thought Ray looks like he's running routes better. I thought Robbie Washington looked markedly improved out there than what he was doing in practice a year ago. Obviously Jacoby George with Jacoby George, he really didn't do much at all, honestly, in the practice time that we watched. But the receivers do look like they're making some forward steps. Elijah Arroyo looks like he's got his physical, the physical aspect of his game back. He looked very, very good running around out there. The young freshman tight end Elijah Lofton looks like a bowling ball. He's short, he's squat. I'm not quite sure how they're going to use him. I don't know why. He doesn't look like a tight end to me, but he makes plays like a tight end. I can see Shannon Dawson scheming things up for him at times. Riley Williams looks like he's better. So a lot of positive things to take out of what we're seeing right now at spring practice. It's too soon to comment too much on the play at the line of scrimmage. They're not in pads yet, so we won't. Nothing else really, I don't think, is jumping out beyond the evaluation of these skill players. Running back position is obviously a little bit weakened, but it's nice to see player development, guys. And we talked about it the other day, Matt. Player development. This spring practice is all about player development, and it really, really is. All you got so many guys injured. This is not the real Miami team that we're watching right now. It's a watered down version of it that is going to impact the optics for those of you that are going to get to go out to some practices because you're boosters and Hurricane Club members, things like that. You're going to be looking at a watered down product because the injuries, you got about a dozen guys that aren't out there right now. That's a lot. And so it's not the real Miami Hurricanes you're going to be seeing, but you're going to see some things that you like quite a bit, like what we're talking about. You're going to be awed at how good Cam Ward looks, the trajectory of his passes, the touch. He is clearly a potentially elite college quarterback. And he is very demanding of his receivers. There were a couple drop balls that we saw, and he was getting after those guys and kind of being a leader out there and making them better. Izubee, I think I'm summing it all up pretty good. Any additional thoughts from you on what you've seen so far of spring practice?
Yeah, I want to kind of touch on the Cam Ward thing. It was pretty interesting because I was speaking to Dia Bell's father, Raja Bell, longtime NBA player, and he kind of told me an interesting story without me even asking about Cam Ward. He kind of mentioned how they sat in a quarterback meeting earlier in the morning yesterday, and how Cam kind of commanded the room, was real personal with everybody, cracking jokes, making people laugh, connecting with the players, even connecting with, the recruits on campus and their parents. And for, Raja to come up to me and say that kind of just made me think, okay, we're hearing all these good things about him. We're seeing on the field how he's interacting with these players. For a recruit's dad to kind of go out his way and tell me that just, tells you a lot about Cam Ward. And, from the interactions I even seen with him, outside the facility, talking to, the recruiting staff and making jokes with them and just making everybody smile. It's like, I feel like this is a home run for Miami. This kid is just fitting into the program seamlessly and just kind of embracing everything. Obviously, he hasn't been here with these guys for the previous years, but he's, making an impact, right away in his first year. And I think things are going to really work out between Cam Ward and the Hurricanes in the coming months, into the season as well.
Yeah, the media hasn't really gotten a chance to get to know this kid very well. He has yet to have a true media availability. I went to one of his autograph signings a couple weeks ago and had the chance to talk to him for a few minutes there. And I walked away very impressed. He's very personable, and you could see the type of leadership skills that he will put on display with the football team. So he's commanding a large portion of NIL budget. There's no doubt about it. But I think that the Canes connection, a la Miami football, are going to get their money's worth here. I think they got a leader. I think they got the best football player on the team, without question. I'll even say including Ruben Bain. I think Ruben Bain's great and is going to be even better this year than he was last. But I think right now you'd have to put Cam Ward because of what he has already done in college football, right up there at the top of your, if you're ranking the players on the team as we did. So it'll be interesting to watch all these things as they continue to evolve. Looking forward to seeing the linemen go after it a little bit more as they put on the pads in spring practice. But all in all, Matt, I hope you agree. I think you'll agree. It's a decent start to the spring, and just in terms of the fact that we are seeing some player development.
I mean, how can you really tell? But I do like Cam Ward. I agree with that. I mean, Cam Ward is a huge difference maker. I mean, it's going to make everything a heck of a lot better for the Miami offense. So really, to me, like I said before, I think the question mark last year was the defense to me heading in. And it turned out that the defense was perfectly fine. And it was the offense that was the issue with the turnovers. Now this year, to me, on the outside looking in right now, I'd be shocked if the offense is the question mark. I think the defense is the question mark, particularly the secondary. Wouldn't shock me if they add a couple more transfers there. And to that point also, you mentioned the development this spring being the key. Well, this spring for coaches also, this is their time. They got to find 10 players to kick off the roster in the second portal window because they got 8. They're at 80. They're at what, 83. They have 10 freshmen that are coming in that have already signed in the summer. So that's 93. Your limit's 85. They're going to probably add a couple more transfers, or at least try to, if not more than that, if they can get a top receiver, et cetera, et cetera. So you're looking at probably having to drop off 10 players out of the 83 on the roster. That's 1 out of every 8 guys that are out there that need to be gone in a few months. Actually, in less than a few months, in basically a month and a half, 2 months. So this is also Miami's time as coaches to say, we need to get a thorough evaluation of who we're getting rid of to make sure we're not making a mistake. The last thing you want to do is get rid of 3 or 4 guys who turn into all conference players somewhere else, because some of them that are going to be gone, you can't just get rid of juniors and seniors. There's not enough of them. Those are the guys right now that are mostly starting. Like, there's a few of them, but there's not 10 of them. So you're talking about some second-year players that you're going to have to say, okay, you know what? We just don't think it's going to work out. And I'm very curious to see who winds up, getting the heave-ho, so to speak, which is really the truth of the matter. It'll probably be put out there like, oh, they felt they had better opportunities somewhere else. Well, if they really did, they would have already left, right? Because you don't want to miss spring ball at your future home if you have a better opportunity somewhere else. It's really just a case of, coach told me I got to leave. That's what it's going to be. They can catch whatever they want, guys. When you see players leaving, going into the transfer portal after the spring, it's not that they were 3rd, 4th team. It's because coach said, we just don't got space, man. See ya. Which is unfortunate. And that's what the NCAA has done to college football. It's not something that Mario wants to do. Mario wishes they had 100 scholarships for every team, But the NCAA puts these coaches in a box that's just untenable. And it's stupidity. It's not right for the student athletes. And I don't know that there's a fix to it. It's really just become basically the pros. It's supposed to be about academics and athletics, and you're called a student athlete. But let's face it, they're just professionals at this point, and they're really not. Some of them are there to get a degree, but the top players are there to make money in NIL and go to the NFL. Like, that's just the truth. And the NCAA may just say the next step after this is just, you don't need to go to class anymore, just play football. Because what's the point? Like, if these guys are already doing whatever they want, go to whatever school they want to, why force them to go to class, NCAA? Why? I mean, they may as well drop that too. That's going to be the next lawsuit. Why do I have to go to class? So what if I got a D and now I can't play? You're infringing on my right to make money. That's going to be the next lawsuit. You watch. When the NCAA declares somebody ineligible and costs them millions of dollars because they can't showcase their skills, that'll become a lawsuit, and the NCAA will lose. And then student athletes will no longer have to go to class. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, another subplot to our day out at spring practice yesterday was we had a chance to have an extended conversation with Shannon Dawson, and it really was great. I mean, I think we got to talk to him for like 12, 13 minutes, and which is long by University of Miami football standards. Usually our sessions are shorter than that, but it was great because we got to cover a lot of ground. And you look at the presence of Cam Ward, and people will ultimately get to see how good he is. I mean, the spring game is not going to be your typical spring game. I don't know how many people are going to really be able to get out there It's going to probably be the fall before you really get to see Cam Ward, but you're going to be impressed. I mean, I'll flat out go out on the limb and tell you are going to be impressed with Cam Ward. But the presence of Cam Ward, to me, ups the ante for Shannon Dawson. You know, I mean, he came in last year. I mean, some things went well, but some things didn't go well. And, you know, I think, you know, he is under the gun this year, you know, now with this quarterback situation looking pretty good. I mean, they got to, you know, Reese Poppenberger, he's slinging the ball around pretty good, has great velocity on his throws. The battle between him and Emory Williams is going to be pretty serious, in my opinion. Emory looks very good as well. So the quarterback room at Miami is in a good place right now. But that does, Matt, put some extra pressure on Shannon Dawson to put a better product on the field this year. Get the tight ends involved. You've got Arroyo, you've got Riley Williams, you've got Lofton. You got 3 dudes there at least that should be able to make sizable contributions. You know, your wide receivers are looking better. I think JoJo Trader clearly is going to be able to help out as a true freshman. Nikar, it looks like he should be able to help out a little bit in year one. You know, of course, with Jacoby coming back. I mean, and then, you know, that's not even mentioning Restrepo, who's a 1,000-yard receiver. So, I mean, look, I mean, Shannon Dawson is going to be under the gun this year. The Canes were 38th in the nation in scoring offense last year, with the quarterbacks throwing 14 interceptions in 13 games. Okay, they did not protect the ball real well. They weren't great in the red zone. So onus is on Shannon Dawson. Now, Matt, one of the things he's got to do is he's got to get Cam Ward to protect the football. I mean, Cam Ward has had 46 fumbles in his 4 years of college football. Okay. So you can't have the quarterback turning the ball over. So Shannon Dawson created his own lab, kind of like the Matt Shodell lab that we have at CaneSport. We'll call this the Shannon Dawson lab. And he had the video team do cut-ups for him of all 46 of Cam Ward's fumbles. And he sliced and diced every one of them up and tried to come to a conclusion of what he could do in coaching Cam Ward to keep him from turning the ball over. And, you know, he seemed to suggest, Matt, that a lot of the problem is focus. I'm not, you know, we didn't get just really get him to elaborate on that, just what he means by that. But, you know, talk a little bit about your thoughts on Shannon Dawson, the pressure he's coming into this year with, and can he teach Cam Ward to not fumble?
Well, he certainly hasn't found out what is causing Cam Ward to fumble, because when your child comes home with a C on the report card and you say you need to focus more, essentially what you're saying to the child is, I don't know what the problem is. You got to figure it out. You know, I mean, focus, the word means nothing. It's obviously nothing technical. It's nothing he could see on film for why he's fumbling so much. Focus just means stop doing it. You know, stop doing it. Just think about it more, which you don't think Cam Ward's thought about it more after he's fumbled 46 times in 4 years? So he might fumble once in a while, but you know what? He makes up for it with these outstanding plays. Do I think he's going to fumble 10 times this season? No, but I do think he'll fumble 5 or 6 times. Other teams know to go for the ball when Cam Ward's running with it. And, you know, he's a little careless with the ball. Let's face it. You know, you watch the film, as Shannon Dawson said, it's a red flag. And, you know, Shannon Dawson's got a little chip on his shoulder, by the way. He was a little chippy, thrown out numbers like he's a reporter, you know. We were 28th in this on offense. We were top 30 in that on offense, you know. You know, it doesn't bother mentioning that his play calling had him, you know, basically 60th in 3rd and 4th down conversions on offense, which has nothing to do with interceptions, by the way. They were an average offense last year, no matter how he wants to say it. Now, would they have been a lot better if they didn't throw 14 interceptions? Yeah. But you know what? They probably would have thrown 8, right? That's pretty normal, 8 or 9 interceptions. So you're talking about 4 or 5 interceptions that shouldn't have happened. You know, they made bad decisions in the red zone. Is that Shannon Dawson's fault? I mean, he blamed Tyler Van Dyke pretty clearly yesterday, right? He said the quarterback has to make better decisions in the red zone. We had 7 red zone turnovers. You know, nothing was Shannon Dawson's fault. They would have been top 10 team if not for Tyler Van Dyke. That's literally what he made it sound like. Am I wrong, guys? Like, I'm not making that up. That's
I'll
what he made
give
it
you
sound like.
a million reasons why coaches never take blame for anything. They make a
No.
lot of money, man. They don't want to get released.
Yeah, but it's just not. It's not a. To me, if once, like, I hope privately he takes responsibility, because if you don't take responsibility for the problems of last year, they're going to keep recurring. Again, it comes back to your children, right? My son comes home, he doesn't get a good grade on the test. I say, listen, I don't mind the bad grade as long as you understand what you did wrong and it won't happen next time. And you can build upon what you've learned off your mistakes. And if he says, there were no mistakes, the teacher threw 18 interceptions, I was perfect. Like, I'll say, well, you're going to suck again the rest of the semester. Like, that's just the truth. Like, that's just common sense. So I was not really enthralled by Shannon Dawson's interview yesterday. I don't understand why he was so adamant throwing out these numbers about how great the offense was and how if it wasn't for these interceptions, the offense was amazing. How in the second full year at Houston was when he had the big jump up and it should happen again here and blah, 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 blah. And, the usual coach talk about, Cam Ward, who's Cam Ward? It's an open competition at quarterback. We're going to look at all these guys. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, if someone asks you to talk about Cam Ward, talk about Cam Ward. Don't talk about Reese Poffenbarger and everybody else. Like, we want to hear about Cam Ward. That was annoying too. So I did not a fan of the interview.
Reese props, man. Reese can leave.
He looks good, man.
I know.
This team would have been fine without Cam Ward. Wouldn't have been as good, but would have been fine. Reese looks shockingly good for a quarterback who was only at Albany. I don't know why nobody else, went after him in high school or whatever. Maybe he just became great at Albany, but I mean, he looks really, really good.
He's got a nice arm. Yeah, I mean.
And Emory threw some nice balls. Jakari threw some nice balls. I mean, again, this is quarterbacks, no pass rush, one-on-one for the most part. There's some 7-on-7. It's not that hard to look good, but we've seen Jakari not look good in those exact same situations, and he threw some really good passes. The first two practices. Emory stands in there his first throw yesterday, beautiful over the shoulder, 25-yarder down the sideline. I mean, so they're on point for this early in the spring. I'm very, very impressed with really all the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, let's shift gears to recruiting, because man, it's just a parade of prospects out there at practice. Some really good looking kids flowing through. So there was a group from Miami Central, Izubee, and it's so obvious that there is a huge connection between the Canes and the Rockets there of Miami Central. And you had a chance to talk to Amari Wallace yesterday. You had a chance to talk to Floyd Boucard, who is picking up some serious Miami interest, the defensive lineman who stood out at the Under Armour camp in Miami, and his recruitment's picking up. Miami became the latest program to offer him on Wednesday. Izubee, I don't think anything is going to get in the way of Miami Central kids coming to the U.
Yeah, yesterday the Miami Central kids, I believe around 11 or 12 of them rolled in early, stayed late. And, that connection is there, alive and well. You look at, Miami's rosters littered with, kids from Miami Central, Ruben Bain, Armando Blunt, Wesley Basaint. And then you look at the staff, you got Roland Smith, head coach at Miami Central 3 years ago that led them to 3 consecutive state titles, and coached a lot of these guys too that are, juniors and seniors visiting Miami. So, that connection is alive and well, like I just said. And, I'll start with Amari Wallace. He was all smiles when he left campus yesterday. I asked him, how big of an impact did that visit have on the way he views Miami? He's pretty much telling me, hey, Miami's a team to beat right now. After what I saw, after how they treated my family, all that good stuff, Miami's a team to beat. And I have to give kudos to, Stephen Wagner, who's been serving on the jury duty the last week. He kind of called this a little bit, 2 weeks ago, put that RPM in for Amari Wallace. And Amari Wallace himself kind of doubled down, yesterday, saying Miami is the school to beat. They're the number one right now. And kind of talking about Floyd Boucard, originally from Quebec in Canada, played his high school ball in Alabama last year. And, like you mentioned, Gary had that huge, great showing at the Under Armour Camp Series last weekend. And, I kind of hinted at it. I said, I think this is a guy that Miami's going to, turn up the heat for. And, there you go. He gets on campus yesterday, picks up an offer from Miami, and he says he's going to switch up his official visits now and probably going to take one, with the Hurricanes. So he still might be new to Central, but he's feeling that love early on. and a bunch of other guys that were on campus yesterday. Randy Derrick, Ezekiel Marston, who yesterday was his second time at Miami the last 3 days. A couple of younger guys as well. So Miami's not wasting any time with these guys. They're making it known that they want them down at Coral Gables, and those kids are feeling the love.
Yeah, we have a steady flow of recruiting stories popping on the website all the time, every day. One of the stories that we have today is on Palm Beach Central. 4-star wide receiver, Waden Charles. He's a Miami commitment. That's not stopping several other schools from keeping in contact with him, trying to sway him. But right now, Izubee, it's looking pretty good for the Canes there. He's got a close relationship with Kevin Beard and Mario Cristobal. I don't see Waden Charles defecting from Miami.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, anytime soon with the relationship with Coach Kevin Beard. And if you kind of look at that receiver room, next year when he's going to be on campus, it's going to be pretty wide open. Guys like Xavier Sherbrooke's probably are going to be gone. Jacoby George is probably going to be gone. Maybe Isaiah Horton stays for another year. You never know how that plays out. But next year, that wide receiver room is going to have a lot of opportunity for a lot of young guys to come in and play. And Coach Kevin Beard has been telling these guys, that exact same thing. And he's kind of showing guys, we talked about it a lot early on the show, how good these wide receivers look. And, these kids are hearing this and they're seeing this as well at practice. So I'm really excited about Waden Charles, and I really don't think anything's going to happen with him and his commitment to the Canes. I think something drastic would really, really have to happen for him to back off that pledge to Miami.
All right, and no visit this spring has been bigger than the visit on Wednesday of top 100 prospect from Port St. Lucie. Vero Beach. He's a 4-star linebacker, TJ Alford. He came out. Everybody wants him. Florida State, Ohio State, Tennessee, the Canes. But we got the impression that this visit went a long way for Miami and really helped them in their efforts to get TJ Alford.
Yeah, TJ is going to be announcing at the end of the month on March 30th. And, I kind of asked him, what brought you out to Miami for your first spring visit? And he kind of told me, hey, I want to get out to all my top 6 schools. I want to weigh the pros and cons with every program. And at March 30th, I want to make that decision. And I asked him, what are the things you're looking for the most? He kind of mentioned to me about the family atmosphere, development. And I said, hey, after spending the day with the coaches, watching the practice, do you see all those? And he said, Miami checked all his boxes yesterday. So he's really loving Miami. He's loved Miami for a long time now, since they first offered him. His father is originally from Miami, so his dad's a big Canes fan. Has kind of raised him to be a Canes fan as well. So I think Miami's in a really, really good spot with Alfred coming off this visit, but he still has 5 other schools he has to get out to, which is going to be very, very tricky. But it's going to be very interesting to see where things go right now. I can't give the edge to any program right now, but I do think Miami's going to be in it to the very end for sure with TJ Alford.
All right, and we can't end the show without talking for a moment about the Canes basketball team. My God, what another disgusting, horrible performance at home last night against Boston College, a very average Boston College team. And these guys, they just folded up, man. Like it's like the Bad News Bears. It's like you look at Norchad, you look at Wooga Poplar. It's like somebody sapped all the talent out of them. Keyshawn George didn't look very good last night. They ended up taking him out of the game down the stretch. I mean, man, it's distressing. Jim Larinaga just looks like he's just had it with this group, and they can't wait for the season to be over. Matt, give us your closing thoughts on Canes basketball.
I mean, nobody really wants to hear about it at this point. They're
All
obviously
right, Izubee, give us your thoughts on Canes basketball.
All right,
Nobody wants to hear Matt.
It looks like the energies has been sucked out of that whole entire team. I feel like it's the same story every single game. They look good, competitive at halftime, and then the final 4 or 5 minutes, the team just forgets how to play basketball. Last night I was watching it. Boston College missed their last 3 or 4 free throws in Miami. Couldn't hit the side of a barn, taking shots yesterday. They're turning the ball over every other, possession down the court. They can't hit shots. They just don't look fluid. They don't look connected at all. Guys are putting up shots, not chasing rebounds. It's just the effort's not there. The chemistry's not there. A lot of things are not going Miami's way. And 8 straight losses. I think they said on the broadcast last night it was tied the longest losing streak in the last 20 years. And coming off a Final Four last year, a lot of expectations were high, and you just fall flat like this. You end the year, 8 straight losses. You're going to Tallahassee, a team that beat you pretty, decent earlier this year. So it looks like they're going to end the year with 9 straight. Hopefully I'm wrong, knock on wood, but this has just been a big disappointment. Yeah, it's just been disappointing this entire year. And, these guys, I feel like just kind of threw up the white flag and surrendered.
They're 15-15 overall now, 6-12 in ACC play. They got to go to Florida State. I don't like their chances there. I don't like their chances in the ACC tournament. It is unfathomable that Canes basketball is likely to end up with a losing record this year. Just unbelievable. I mean, and I don't think that it will inspire Jim Larinaga to retire, but I think he will, dig in and he's got a good recruiting class coming in. To me, the key for Jim is don't hang on. You gotta see guys out the door. The AJ Caseys, the Christian Watsons, the Ja'Kai Robinsons that are taking up roster spots and not giving you very, very much. They have got to be sent to the portal and replaced by what Matt Shodell calls free agents, quality transfer guys like a Jordan Miller, for example. They need to get those kind of players in the portal to supplement what they have. And Jim can rebuild this thing pretty quickly, but he needs roster spots. So it'll be very interesting to watch that evolve here in the coming really days, more so than even weeks. I mean, they're going to have to move pretty fast and get this thing back on the tracks. So that's going to do it for this morning for Good Morning CaneSport. We covered a lot of ground for you. Thank you so much for starting out your day with us. If you are on YouTube right now, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube and growing our audience. And if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please, please, please head on over to our website. We got a, I'm going to throw a special offer on the screen for you. I've been doing that from time to time. We will give you your first 2 months for $1. Use the code CANES1, CANES1, and come on over, join our site. We really want to bring the entire Canes Nation together. The day will come that this program gets its act together again. We promise you that, and we'd like everybody to be together at CaneSport.com when it happens. So for Matt Shodell and Izubee Charles, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time, everybody.